London, 1666. A city alive with energy, a hub of commerce and trade, where narrow streets twisted between timber-framed houses, bustling markets, and churches that towered over the skyline. The air was filled with the smells of wood-burning fires, street vendors' food, and the chatter of thousands of residents going about their daily lives. But under the surface, the city was a tinderbox, waiting for a spark that would ignite a catastrophe no one could have foreseen. This is the story of the Great Fire of London. An event so devastating that it reshaped the city forever, and yet, the true cause remains shrouded in mystery. Was it an unfortunate accident, as many believe, or could there have been more at play, perhaps something darker? Today on Reality Recital, we'll unravel the forgotten mysteries of this infamous event, exploring not just what happened, but the hidden truths, forgotten lives, and strange twists that surround it. So, settle in as we embark on a journey back in time, into the heart of a disaster that still echoes through the streets of London to this day. Let's go back to London as it was in the year 1666. The city was one of the largest in the world at the time, home to nearly 500,000 people, many of whom lived in densely packed, wooden homes. The streets were narrow and winding, creating a labyrinth of alleyways and corridors where the risk of fire was always present. London had recently endured a devastating outbreak of the plague just the year before. Tens of thousands had died, leaving the city reeling from the loss. The economy was struggling, and many people were just starting to rebuild their lives when the dry, hot summer of 1666 arrived. Rain had been scarce for months, turning the wooden buildings into kindling, ready to burst into flames at the slightest spark. Despite these conditions, the people of London went about their lives with little thought to the danger lurking around every corner. After all, fires had broken out before, but they had always been contained. London had managed, through luck or skill, to avoid a citywide catastrophe, but as the summer heat lingered, so did the tension. The city was like a powder keg, just waiting for that one spark to ignite it. And on the night of September 2nd, that spark finally came. It began in the early hours of the morning, long after most of London had gone to sleep. Thomas Farriner, a baker for the king, was finishing up his work at his bakery on Pudding Lane. The day had been long, and Farriner, like many, was likely exhausted, eager for rest. His ovens were still warm when he and his family retired for the night, but at around 1 a.m., a small spark, perhaps from the still smoldering oven, escaped. In a matter of minutes, the bakery, which was crammed into one of London's many narrow streets, was engulfed in flames. Farriner and his family were lucky. They managed to escape through a window, but the fire was out of control. Here's where the mystery begins. Fires had started in London before, but this one spread with unusual speed. Some accounts suggest that within an hour, the blaze had reached the neighboring buildings. The dry timber, combined with a strong wind from the east, turned the flames into a relentless monster, devouring everything in its path. But was it simply the weather and the materials that made this fire different? Or was something more sinister at play? By dawn, the fire had already consumed a significant part of Pudding Lane and was spreading southward toward the Thames. Residents, many still groggy from sleep, were suddenly thrust into a state of panic. They grabbed what little they could and fled into the streets. But it was already too late. The fire wasn't just growing, it was racing through the city. As the fire raged on, people began to ask questions. How had this fire spread so quickly, so uncontrollably? Could it really have been just an unfortunate accident, or had someone started the fire on purpose? rumors spread like wildfire, faster than the flames themselves. Some believed that foreign agents, perhaps the French or Dutch, had set the fire as an act of war. England was in the midst of conflict with both nations, and suspicion quickly fell on foreigners living in London. Angry mobs began targeting them, believing that they were responsible for the destruction. The French watchmaker, Robert Hubert, became a central figure in this growing paranoia. But here's the strange part: Hubert confessed to starting the fire, claiming he had thrown a fireball into Farriner's bakery. His confession seemed to satisfy many who were desperate for someone to blame. Yet there was a glaring problem. Hubert wasn't even in London when the fire started. He had only arrived in the city days after the blaze began. So why confess? Was he coerced? Or perhaps simply a man seeking attention in a time of crisis? To this day, his motives remain a mystery, but Hubert's confession didn't explain everything. Many believe the fire spread so quickly due to poor city planning and weather conditions. The narrow streets, combined with the dry summer and strong winds, created a perfect storm for disaster. Yet, some still wonder. Could there have been other, more deliberate forces at play? By the time the fire was finally brought under control on September 6, London was unrecognizable. Over 13,000 homes were destroyed, along with 87 churches and numerous public buildings. The fire had decimated much of the city, leaving a trail of smoldering ruins where vibrant neighborhoods had once stood. Yet, despite the vast destruction, only 6 deaths were officially recorded. This low death toll has puzzled historians for centuries. Was it possible that more people had perished in the chaos, their bodies lost in the debris and confusion? Some believe that many of the poor and marginalized, whose lives were not well documented, were simply forgotten in the aftermath. Others suggest that the flames were so intense that some victims may have been completely consumed, leaving no trace behind. But amidst the destruction, the fire also revealed something extraordinary. Hidden beneath the layers of London streets were ancient Roman ruins. As the fire tore through the city, it uncovered parts of London's history that had been buried for centuries. It was a reminder that the city, though wounded, had deep roots. London would rebuild, but the scars of the fire, and the mysteries it left behind, would never be fully erased. After the flames finally died down, the question remained: how would London rebuild? The city was left in ruins, but out of this tragedy came a chance for a new beginning. Sir Christopher Wren, one of the most renowned architects of the time, was commissioned to redesign much of London. His vision would give rise to some of the city's most iconic buildings, including the new St. Paul's Cathedral, which still stands today as a symbol of resilience. But while the city was physically rebuilt, the psychological scars of the fire remained. For years, people continued to debate the true cause of the fire. Was it really just an accident, a tragic consequence of the city's poor infrastructure and bad luck? Or were there darker forces at work? Ones that would never be fully uncovered. As London rose from the ashes, the Great Fire became not just a story of destruction, but one of rebirth. Yet, even now, the mysteries of that fateful event linger. What truly caused the fire to spread so quickly? How many lives were really lost? And could there have been a hidden hand guiding the flames? And now, we turn the question over to you. What do you think? Was the Great Fire of London a tragic accident, or is there more to the story than history has recorded? Could there have been a more sinister force at play, or was it simply the perfect storm of conditions that led to the city's downfall? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you're as fascinated by history's hidden mysteries as we are, make sure to subscribe to Reality Recital so you never miss an episode. What forgotten mysteries should we explore next? Drop your suggestions, hit that notification bell, and remember, history is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Until next time, stay curious and stay questioning.